To give you some background about Seabed 2030, as Katie said, I'm the head of the Regional Center for the Atlantic and Indian Oceans. I'm based at Columbia University in New York. So Seabed 2030 is a collaborative project. It's a partnership between the Nippon Foundation and Japan and GEBCO, the General Bathymetric Chart of the Ocean. And it's really meant to inspire the complete mapping of the world's oceans by 2030. And what we're doing in a more tangible way is we're compiling all available bathymetric data into the freely available GEBCO ocean map that can be used around the world by any stakeholders in any community. And the motivation of this project is to empower the world to make policy decisions, to use the ocean sustainably, and to undertake scientific research that's informed by a detailed understanding of the global ocean floor. A lot of these goals and aspirations are very much in line with those of the UN Ocean Decade, and it's one of the foundational components of the Ocean Decade is to map the world's ocean. Why is Seabed 2030 important? Well, first and foremost, I think it could be very easy to argue that bathymetry data is an essential ocean observation. It is a foundational data set upon which many other activities in the ocean are dependent. Seabed mapping data has very broad use and is also very valuable to a wide variety of stakeholders. It's also important to remember that ocean processes extend well beyond territorial waters. So really working together to build a complete map benefits all of us. It's also really important to recognize how little of the ocean has been mapped with direct observation. By our best estimates, based on the most recent GEBCO product, only about 20% of the ocean has been mapped. And the map that's shown on the bottom of this slide, which you'll see come up repeatedly in what I show you today, the black areas in the ocean represent the parts of the ocean for which we do not have data. So vast areas in our world ocean are just not mapped and not known. And if we're going to try to achieve this massive task, we really have to work together and cooperate and coordinate to get this done. Seabed 2030 has established a regional approach to working toward its goals. So there are 4 regional centers that have been set up that are meant to engage with stakeholders, really build upon existing efforts. We recognize that as a project of this magnitude, we can't achieve it alone. We have to work with each other and really bring everyone together to make sure that we leverage and promote the good work that many people are doing across our regions. We're also assembling our regional data products, and we're identifying data gaps so that we can inform new data acquisition. There's a global center that is in the UK that is tasked with bringing together the regional products that we build and disseminating those to the world. The map here identifies where the regional centers are located, and the colors also match the portions of the ocean that they are tasked with working on. So they're pretty large areas, and really I think an important thing to remember here as I said, we want to work with existing efforts, and we recognize that local and national efforts drive regional efforts, which drive the global efforts. And really getting all of those pieces to work together is what we need to do to achieve this goal. I wanted to point out that in the MOC region, which is identified here in this yellow box in the middle, it actually intersects 3 of the Seabed 2030 regional areas. So the green is the Atlantic, the sort of purple is the North Pacific, and then the red on the lower left is the South and West Pacific. I think it's just important to recognize that the regional boundaries are not a direct match with existing regional boundaries, and that's okay because we're all working together toward this common goal, and we're exchanging information and data and knowledge across certainly the Seabed 2030 centers and hopefully across every other regional effort that has a contribution to make. Briefly, just to give you a sense of what we mean by 100% mapped by 2030, this is an image from a paper that we published, I think 2 years ago now, that identifies our resolution goals. And this is really based on what is achievable, though still ambitious, to accomplish in the next decade, and looking at the state-of-the-art and the capabilities of modern ship-based multi-beam echo sounders. So what we have done is identified depth-dependent resolution goals, with the highest resolution of 100 meter in the shallow waters, shallower than 1500 meters, and then moving to coarser resolution toward the deeper water. And so you can see in the mock area that there's a fair amount of area that is in the 100-meter resolution target, but also a very large area that's in the 400-meter resolution target. Of course, we certainly want to make the best available data available to the world, but we recognize that there are challenges in doing this, some of which are technical and some of which have to do with data ownership and sharing of data. And so this gives us some space to work with those limitations and hopefully work toward a complete map of the planet. Briefly, why should we work together? Well, we can certainly learn from one another. We're all doing similar work, trying to create similar data products, and I think that there's opportunity to learn from and accelerate with the kinds of efforts that others are doing. Virtual communication like we're using today is, of course, a big helper in that space, but we can really try to leverage each other's work toward our common goals. We can certainly share data, approaches, workflows, and tools. Sharing data is very important because of the cost of data acquisition. Map once, use many times is a common theme that we hear in our community. We can develop new collaborations and opportunities within our own sectors. So I work in the academic sector, but many of you are in the government sector and in industry, and there's new opportunities for how we can work together and discover new ways of achieving things and new workflows and tools and approaches. Certainly getting input from the broad community of stakeholders is important in terms of coming up with a priority scheme and trying to determine if we can accomplish mapping campaigns. Where should we map and how can we do it most effectively? Capacity development is hugely important. How can we grow our community? How can we accelerate everyone and move faster together? How can we take advantage of the power of the crowd as we bring more people together? And of course, also recognizing that it is one ocean and one planet, which is one of the taglines and hashtags of the UN Ocean Decade. So coming together to do this as one global community makes a lot of sense. Briefly touching on the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development, it's a very fortunate reality that these two efforts are happening in parallel and that they are so well suited with each other and can certainly help both efforts move forward. There's a lot of great information about the UN Decade that's available online already. And I think that this quote on the right captures it well. This is really a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, what's happening with the UN Decade. And there's a lot that we can accomplish in the coming decade if we are smart about how we bring our resources together and how we work together in new ways. And I personally am very excited about the opportunity to develop new ways of working as a global community together. I think that will have very long-lasting effects on how we manage the ocean in a sustainable way.